But if you're here visiting, no problem. We are in the middle of a series in Deuteronomy, a long one. But I think it's going to matter to you even if you're joining us today. Because what we've been looking at is the book of Deuteronomy was written to God's people as they're about to enter the promised land. And we've been uncovering what it's going to take to live in a promised land. Specifically, what we've been focusing on is that it's going to take leaders to move into this promised land. And our church is in kind of a fun zone of heading here into Langara. There's lots of new change, lots of new things going on. And so we thought a series about God's people moving into new and greater things would fit. And it's boiled down a lot to what it means to be a leader in God's kingdom. Now, here's why this correlates to camp for me. Is because the reason why I'm involved at Camp 8, or camp in general, is because when I look out at that chapel and I see all those young, bright faces, what I see is the future leaders of the church. That's why I'm there. They might not know that. You might not know that. But that's why I'm there. This is the future of God's kingdom, and these are the future leaders. And I believe wholeheartedly that through God's power, he can transform us all into the kind of people that actually usher in his kingdom by his power. And I believe that wholeheartedly, so that's why I'm there. And today we're going to talk about why that's important. Now, I need you to stay with me a little bit because today is one of those sermons where we're looking at kind of like a bummer story in Deuteronomy. And so I just invite you to lean in because it's one of those sermons where you're like, okay, we're looking at a negative story and we're looking at a bad example and we're going to need the Spirit's help to pull us out of that and give us hope for what's possible, okay? So I need you to engage your faith with me. It is one of those stories. So when we think about leaders and what it's going to take to see God's kingdom come in our city, in your school, wherever you find yourself in your workplace, it does take leaders. We're not passive people. And if you're like me, these days, being a leader is a pretty tough sell. If you have an opinion or you stand for something, it's like a matter of 2 minutes before somebody disagrees with you, and it's probably in a YouTube video. And then someone posts a rebuttal to that YouTube video, and then there's just this swirling chaos of opinions. Everybody, like people that try to stand for something, seem to just get destroyed, and nobody actually seems right. So when we talk about going, hey, you're the future leaders, I don't know what that does to you in your mind. So here's a truth that's disturbing me lately is that to be a Christian technically actually is to be a leader. Now there's a certain kind of leader that's like a capital L leader, personality type, gifting kind of leader. Sure, there are those people, great. But strictly speaking, to be a Christian is to have a calling and a level of influence that's inextricable from following Jesus. I'll remind you of a few verses. Maybe you've heard these before. 1 Corinthians says it this way: we're therefore Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal of the gospel to the world through us. Well, that's a massive job. Ambassador, my goodness. Peter says it this way: you're a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. So, what does it mean to be a royal priest? We use that word sometimes. It's kind of a Bible-y term. What it means is that you've actually been given the authority to represent God before humanity. It's like you should kind of scratch your head for a second and go, oh my goodness, what a massive role. Adam and Eve, actually, that's their original design. It's their intent to go, hey, you're going to be a royal priest. You're going to be royal because you rule the world in my name. And the priestly part is you're actually reflecting me. So you're ruling the world like reflecting me to it, God speaking. That's a huge, beautiful, deep, rich calling. It's actually our intended purpose. So when Peter says in the New Testament, hey, you're a royal priesthood again, it's a reminder of this original, beautiful calling that fulfills our purpose. And if you stop and think about it for a second, it's a massive job. Privileged job. So Moses, one of the main characters of Deuteronomy, obviously, Moses was one of the best examples of a royal priest that we had in the Old Testament, like pre-Jesus. Moses, David, another really great one. They kind of duke it out for the best example we had. And Moses failed at his royal priestly calling. He fell short, which means Moses failed at the job we now have. which is like crazy to think about. Moses fell short of the job that, congratulations, Peter says, you've been reinstated with. That's a little bit of a gulp. First of all, it's a big job. Secondly, Moses didn't make it? Moses fell short of this? I mean, it's no wonder people don't sign up to be leaders in the kingdom. Well, if Moses can't do it, my goodness, I'm just a guy, what am I going to do? So there's a little bit of a tension here. This is why I said this is one of those sort of negative stories that we're going to have to mine some beauty out of. And I think we can. There's lots. So Moses failed the job we have, yet our very nature is to be royal priests. There's no escaping it. It's part of our identity in Christ. And we've been given a command to make disciples. Like, we've been told to go advance the kingdom. And the church is, you could say, on a journey through the desert of discipleship. And it's being led by royal priests, you and me, who are exemplifying who God is, representing him as we march through this desert of discipleship. And so we're all in a very similar place that the Israelites find themselves. And yet we find ourselves with this tension going, whew, am I part of the plan? Am I one of the leaders in this movement? If Moses didn't make it, how am I going to? So after all of that bad news, I have to ask you, do you want the job? You want the job? You want the job of royal priest? I mean, you got to pause and ask yourself this. Because it's quite easy, I find it quite easy, in a Christian faith, to have a kind of calling that's less than this, that doesn't actually require any kind of public representing sort of aspect to it. It's actually very popular these days to have a very private, personal, podcasty kind of Christianity, where we're on our little personal growth track towards Jesus, right? But it's not like royal priest job description type of yes. It's a more personal and private thing. So let's look at the passage today and see what it is that God told Moses. So in Deuteronomy 3, verses 23 to 29, this is Moses speaking. He says, "At that time I pleaded with the Lord, sovereign Lord, you've begun to show your servant your greatness and your strong hand. For what God is there in heaven or on earth who can do the deeds and mighty works you do? Please let me go over and see the good land beyond the Jordan, that fine hill country in Lebanon. But because of you, the Lord was angry with me." This is Moses speaking to his people. "But because of you, Israelites, the Lord was angry with me and wouldn't listen to me. That is enough," the Lord said. "Do not speak to me anymore about this matter. You're not going to cross the Jordan. But commission Joshua and encourage and strengthen him, for he will lead this people across and will cause them to inherit the land that you will just see." So it's a bit of a sad story. Now, why does Moses get disqualified? What happened that has God so perturbed and so firm on the idea that Moses is no longer qualified to be a royal priest in front of God's people as they enter this promised land? What happened? Well, there's a story that happened in the last book in Numbers, and to sum it up for you, what happened is the people are thirsty in the desert, as tends to happen, and they're crying out to God, "Why have you brought us here? This is the worst. We should have just died in Egypt. At least there was water there." They're all complaining. And then God says, "All right, Moses, Aaron, go to this rock and speak to it, and water will come out of this rock for the people." And then what happens is Moses and Aaron go up to the rock, and instead of speaking to it, they strike it. And water comes out, and everybody drinks. That's it. That's what happened. That's why Moses is disqualified. Now, if you just hear that paraphrase, you're like, chill, God. Like, strike versus speak? Like, come on. It's like a technical little difficulty. It doesn't seem like a big deal. But in its essence, Moses was disobedient to what God said. He disobeys, and to us it really seems small and technical, but to God apparently this is like a massive deal. This is a massive deal. And even Moses doesn't seem to realize the seriousness of his disobedience. Now I need to ask you, before we move on, when you think about disobeying God's commands, he has very specific commands to us sometimes. I think about things like love your neighbor or go make disciples. Those are very concrete things. And when you don't do those things, or let's say when we choose to sin, things like that, does it seem small to you? Does it seem like a technicality? Does it seem like a minor issue, the idea of disobedience? Because I don't know about you, but I like what I find myself saying a lot is, yeah, I didn't do exactly what you said, but I got really close. Don't you do this? Where there's a command that doesn't make a lot of sense to you, or it scares you, or you don't really want to do it, or for whatever reason you don't want to do it. But then instead of, you don't really disobey, you just get kind of close to it. Like, oh, I'm not going to make disciples. That's like, I don't even know where to begin with that. So, but I will go to church. Or I will show up to a small group. And then you would have every reason to kind of act like Moses, going, God, chill. Like, I know I didn't do exactly what you said, but I got so close. What do you, like, why are you so nitpicky almost in this kind of stuff? Moses is disqualified from his primary job description. That's a big deal. So here's what happens when we, that disposition of, yeah, but I got close. To me, it's evidence of a kind of Christianity and a kind of faith and a kind of walk with God that is only personal and sort of has this, I'm marching my way towards Jesus by myself, and I'm going to kind of do lots of the things. I'm going to try to make God happy. I'm going to try to get in his good books, and he has some things that he needs me to do, and so I'll do lots of them. But I'm not going to take obedience as seriously as maybe we should, because, I don't know, I got close. Now, God insists that we obey him. He insists that we obey him. Why? Here's the point. You can't represent somebody you're not obeying. Okay? This is the big deal today. You can't represent someone that you aren't taking perfect instruction from. That's no longer a representing sort of mandate. We might have a personal, private Christianity that's trying to do the right things. But that actually isn't the primary job description. The primary role that we were designed to be is royal priests that represent who he is to the world. That's why obedience is actually really crucial, because if we don't obey, we're not actually representing him or looking like him anymore. So imagine if you had like a picture of the ambassador of Canada to, let's say, the States, okay? So an ambassador has specific instructions from, let's say, the prime minister. I don't really know how this works. This is how I'm assuming it works. But you get specific instructions to go represent the Canada to the States. That's an ambassador. Now imagine if that ambassador went and just started kind of winging it. Just making stuff up, getting close. And then he comes back to Canada and he's like, yeah, I didn't really do exactly what you told me to do, but I got close, I think. I kind of winged it. That would be, you're no longer an ambassador because you didn't follow the instructions exactly. Okay? So it's a representing kind of issue. So I need to ask you, how do you feel about the idea that following Jesus is a necessarily public display of who he is to the world? Like, how do you feel about that? Maybe that's news to you. Now, there's a lot that's personal and private about our walk with God, for sure. I'm not saying that there isn't one. But if we want to talk about the purpose that we have, it's inherently public. And it's meaningful and purposeful, but it's a little bit scary. What if there's no such thing as a private faith? What if that's not a thing? I love having private faith. It means I don't have to obey. I can just get close and nobody really notices. So you'd be forgiven for squirming a little bit at the idea that our faith is public, because it's the public nature of Moses' calling that kind of gets him into trouble. It's his public representing sort of role, this high calling, that actually is part of the problem. It messes it up for him. Let's look at the actual story in Numbers. So I summed it up for you earlier. The people are grumbling. There's no water. God says, speak to the rock. And then let's read how Moses actually conducts himself in this passage. Numbers 20, starting in verse 10, says this. So he and Aaron gathered the assembly in front of the rock, and Moses said to them, listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock? Then Moses raised his arms and struck the rock twice with his staff. Water gushed out, and the community and their livestock drank. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them. Whew. That's a strong indictment, yes? So here's what's going on. God has a very specific thing he's trying to reveal about himself in this passage. We don't have time to get into this super deeply, but just to sum it up for you, the reason why he says speak to the rock instead of strike it is because God was trying to convey something about his mercy that flows when we ask. Isn't that a beautiful truth? He was wanting to show his people, I'm with you, I love you, just ask me. Speak, I'm listening. Isn't that beautiful? Did Moses convey that? Not so much. Listen, you rebels. That's not a great start to try to communicate and represent God as a merciful God who's overflowing with love and abounding in grace. Listen, you rebels. Accusatory, not merciful. Must we bring water to you? He makes himself almost the provider of this thing. And then he strikes it, which makes human effort and action seem like the thing that releases God's grace as opposed to his will and goodness. Huge misrepresentation going on here. And God seems to think this is a huge deal. You didn't trust me enough to honor me as holy in front of my people. Translation, your job, Moses, is to honor me as holy, meaning I'm the only one worth reflecting. I'm holy. I'm set apart. I'm different. I'm unique. I'm not like you. I'm not like the people. And your job is to honor me as holy, as the only one worth representing. What you did is you didn't show me, you showed them yourself. You didn't display me, you displayed yourself. That's the biggest betrayal of a royal priestly calling there could be, is displaying yourself instead of him. And so what seems like a technicality, speak, strike, whatever, speak, strike, come on. He's like, no. I'm doing something. I'm revealing something about who I am. I'm holy. I'm good. They need to see me. Listen to what I'm telling you to do. Obey me. Representing God is at stake in obedience. That's huge. So where did Moses go wrong? Like he has a pretty good track record actually of being obedient up to this point. The Red Sea thing, that was cool. You know, he's got a track record of doing what he's told. Which is part of why the gulp is for us. It's like, man, how did Moses go wrong? And I think we can identify with where Moses went wrong. In this particular circumstance, what prevented him from just obeying? What prevented him from hearing a command and just doing it? Don't you get frustrated with yourself in this same way? You're like, I know what to do and I just didn't do it again. Haven't you been there? Like, I know what the command is, I know what the right answer is, I know what I'm supposed to do, and I just didn't again. Moses finds himself in a situation like that. I was told what to do and I didn't do it. Okay, why? Let's dig just a little deeper. So, he gets a command from God, but here's what happens. He gets a command from God to represent him, to obey him. But what Moses is doing is his eyes aren't fixed on God, they're fixed on the people. His heart is filled with what's going on horizontally in front of him, his circumstances. And if you've spent time with that generation of Israelites, you would have every reason to be extremely frustrated. Israelites in the Bible are known for being grumblers. Generation 1 in the Sinai desert is probably the grumbliest of them all. And so if you heard a command from God, but then you looked around at them, frustration would fill your heart. And so he gets a vertical, so to speak, command, but his vision is entirely horizontal in this moment. And it causes him to lose sight of God's command in his frustration, and he ends up misrepresenting them. So here's the point. Moses attempted to reflect God while looking elsewhere. He attempted to represent God while looking elsewhere, not looking at him at all. Another way of saying it is that Moses attempted to execute God's commands with his eyes fixed on the world, with his eyes fixed on results. Now, people think obedience often is about doing what you're told. God wants you to obey because he wants you to do what you're told, because he wants you to learn discipline or, sure. But a deeper way of understanding obedience is it's actually an invitation into trust. It's an invitation to know him more. So when he says, obey me, what he's really trying to get you to do is trust him. Because obedience, we call it obedience because it's such a negative word because usually we don't want to do it. And so he's like, no, I'm asking you to do things that are immediately apparent and obviously good to you because I'm trying to build a trust relationship with you. And what does this passage say? You didn't trust me enough to honor me as holy. You didn't know me enough. You didn't keep your eyes on me enough. I wasn't the center of attention for you. I wasn't the middle and the beginning and the end for you. Your heart was filled with other things. So we do what Moses did. We do this. I do this. God gives us a command, okay? Like, go make disciples. It's one of my favorites. It's a big one. And that is a very priestly public command. You want to talk about representing God to this world? He says, all right, everybody, go help others follow me and know me by representing me in the way that you live and speak. Huge priestly calling, hugely representative, very ambassadorial sort of command. And then what we do, or what I do, is I go, okay, cool, command, got it, go make disciples. And then I look around down here. I look around at all of you. I look around in the world. I look around in my classroom or in my job or in my society and my city. And I go, okay, command, cool. And then I'm looking around. And then I'm assessing whether I'm going to obey based on all the things I'm looking around at down here. Really hard to obey if we're doing that, especially at the discipleship call. Especially because my anxiety spikes. Like, make disciples. My goodness, like, I go, not even just tell people about Jesus, like, lead them towards him at cost to me. They don't even want that. Like, you're looking around down here, you're just counting yourself out super quick. I do. My anxiety, and then I start judging everybody on who's worthy of discipling. Like, okay, it would maybe that guy might, from my perspective, receive this, maybe. And you're just assessing your obedience based on what you're looking around at. It's kind of human nature. And then I disobey. I don't actually make disciples. I don't take up my priestly calling. But I'm going to get really close so that you don't notice. I'm going to show up to church. I'm going to show up to the small group. I'm going to do all the right things. I'll strike the rock, but I'm not going to speak to it. Like, I'm not going to obey, so technically. I'm not going to do exactly what he said. But I'll get so close and no one will notice. So, and I feel like God says, thank you for going to church. Thank you for showing up, and there's room for journeys, for sure. But I told you to make disciples. I told you to lead people towards me. I told you to embody the way that I led people by my Spirit. At cost to you at times, by opening your mouth at times, by thinking it through at times, by maybe writing down your plan for how that might happen so that you're not winging it. This is who you are. This is what you're doing. This is what I made you for. And we go, yeah, but have you looked around down here? Have you looked around at the people you've called me to lead? Like you hear Moses somehow I'm talking, right? Have you seen these people? Have you seen the world? And he goes, I told you to make disciples. And since when is people's responsiveness to that of your concern? Since when is their responsiveness, what does that have anything to do with what I've asked you to do? There's some tension there. Now look, I understand that the command to make disciples is a challenging one. It is leading people through a desert. It is. And there's like some death that goes on in our hearts in this discipleship journey. The people being discipled have to lay down all kinds of things. We as people who are trying to represent God, we find that we have to lay down all kinds of things in that journey. I'll tell you what, I'll be honest with you. I'll be real honest with you. I, every day, want to stop doing the discipleship thing, and I just want to do the church thing. Every day I wake up, and the enemy whispers in my head, stop making disciples, just do church, no one will care. I hear it most every day. And then he points at my track record of discipleship, which is like, ugh. It's like not that great. I'm really talking about discipleship. Like I'm talking about people who lay it all down for the sake of Christ to reflect him at whatever cost. Disciples. I don't know how. Don't assess me on my track record of that. So the enemy goes, you should just don't do that. Don't obey him. Like, just strike the rock. Just do church. Everyone will love you. Because people keep bumping into a ceiling, because I do, of going, oh my goodness, this goes deeper? Like following Jesus is deeper than this? And there's still more in my heart that he wants to surrender for my freedom? I really liked that one. I thought I became a Christian 10 years ago, and there's still more that he's doing. Wow. And people get tired of it, and they stop wanting to be discipled. And they stop wanting to reflect Jesus even more fully. And that other thing that's on their heart that's still a black spot that came out way later than you thought, do you want that rubbed out too? To reflect him greater? In my experience, because it's mine, I just hit ceilings and I go, I'm done. I'm a Christian. We're good. I go to church. Everything's fine. My life's fine. Discipleship is done. It's like, nope. I told you to go make disciples. Here's why. Is God's image is at stake. The reason why I say yes to making disciples every day, even though I don't feel very successful at it, and even maybe everybody around me wants me to stop doing that, the reason why I'm not stopping is because the image of God is at stake. What he looks like is at stake. Who the world sees him to be is at stake. And when we make disciples, we walk people through, and we go through again the full gospel of the truth affecting our hearts, the repentance that needs to take place in light of who he is, and the faith that comes and this resurrection life that leads us into beauty and wholeness. And we have to make disciples because who God is and what he's done, and people seeing it is at stake. That's a high calling. I want people to see him for his fullness, for exactly who he is. I don't get to decide what the plan is. He told me to make disciples in its fullness. So in the face of God's command to lead, to represent him, to make disciples, where are you looking? Where are you looking? Are you looking around? Are you looking horizontally? A little bleak, a little frustrating. Are you frustrated with others' responsiveness? That's looking elsewhere. Are you assessing the worthwhileness of this investment? That's looking elsewhere. Are you deeming yourself inadequate for such a calling? That's looking elsewhere. And here's what Jesus did. Jesus kept his eye on the Father and obeyed him perfectly. And he reflected God perfectly in his obedience. And it took him to death on a cross. And in Jesus' full, technical, exact obedience to God's will, we get the fullest picture of the nature of God. We get the fullest, most beautiful, accurate picture of who he is. Jesus' obedience was necessary to reflect his Father's nature to the world, of God that is full of compassion, a God that dies for his enemies, a God that is infinitely full of mercy and longs to show it. That's what was at stake in Jesus' obedience. And it's what's at stake in our obedience. Do you want to reveal him fully and perfectly like Jesus did? Imagine if Jesus assessed the worthwhileness of his obedience by looking horizontally around at how many people responded. He was alone hanging on the cross. That's failure. From my perspective, don't do the discipleship thing anymore, Jesus. Nobody came along with you. You're by yourself. And Jesus said, not what's going on. I'm here to reveal my Father, and this is what he's like. Oh, even though nobody's there, nobody cares. That's the royal priest, Jesus. That's our example. So here's where I suggest you look. In the face of this command, fix your eyes on the one who gave the command. That's Jesus. Fix your eyes on him. Because in him, you're going to find both the example and the power to fulfill it. What does that mean? Revelation 1, I love this verse. To him who loves us and has freed us from our sins by his blood and made us a kingdom, priests to his God and Father, to him be the glory and dominion forever and ever. When we keep our eyes fixed on Jesus and we obey him, he makes us into priests. He makes us into his image. He already was the perfect mediator and the perfect image. And so he does that on our behalf and then extends us the job anyway and goes, if you follow me and you trust me, you will honor me as holy with your life and you will display me and I will make you a kingdom of priests by my power. Don't try harder. Don't try to be better than Moses. Good luck with that. Don't try to be better than Moses. Keep your eyes fixed on the one who gave the command. And here's what happens. Jesus will transform you into his likeness as you obey with your eyes fixed on him. Revelation 1 promises that. To him who set us free and made a way for us to be near him and like him and with him, he will transform us as we obey. But don't look elsewhere. So I ask you, do you want the job? Do you want the job of being a royal priest, a leader, someone who represents God to this world no matter where you are? I don't know, a lot of you, especially you Camp 8ers, maybe you're heading into a new phase of life like Ivan talked about. Oh my goodness, is the world screaming at you to disobey this command of making disciples? Instead, I'll ask you a question. Do you want to look like him so that people can see what he's like? Do you want to look like him so that people can see what he's like? That's a worthwhile calling for obeying. Not the results, not whether you think it's a good investment, not whether you have the time. Do you want people to see Jesus? Do you want them to witness who he is? He will display himself through your life as you obey him and say yes to him. He will do it. He just needs your yes. So I want the job. I want to look like him. I want to look like him. And I want to obey him, even though when it doesn't make sense. So I have an encouragement to you. Try obeying and then assess it like after that. Try obeying. Try obeying exactly. Try to go make a disciple. There's lots of commands to obey. I'm picking the discipleship one because it's up there with the main ones. There's probably lots of commands God would give you. I'm going with the discipleship one because I think it's one of the most helpful. Try to go make a disciple. Obey technically and exactly. And then don't look around. Keep your eyes on him and see what he turns you into by his power as you trust him and deeper and practically. It's miraculous. And God does miracles through us. He displays himself through us. He still wants to give us that royal priestly calling because he wants to imbue us with purpose. It's so fulfilling. It's so fulfilling even if everyone says no. I promise you, everybody can say no. Everybody can abandon you. And you'll be like, I have a trust relationship with God. And I'm displaying him to the world because he's more beautiful than all of this. And he's more beautiful than me. And I'm fulfilled. Father, I pray that you would give us the courage to obey you. And Lord, I am so sorry for just getting close and thinking I can get close and still reveal you. But Father, you have given us very particular commands. And Father, I ask that you would give us the ability to see those not as burdens, but as invitations for us to look like you and be like you and display you. Oh, what a privilege. So Father, as we consider obedience, as we consider what is sometimes a really scary thing to say yes to you exactly, I pray that you would fill us with the hope that we have, that you accomplish it in us when we say yes. And it's not by our effort or being greater than Moses. No, your Spirit works in us when we say yes. And so we submit to you and your power to do what you intend on doing through your people. Make us into a royal priesthood. Make us into a holy nation. Make us into your children who represent you well. And Father, I also pray that many would come to see you. Would many come to see your goodness? Would they not see us? Help them to not see us. Help them to see you. In Jesus' name, amen. Why don't we stand and worship?